friends, it's me, Em again, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things sinister. If you are interested in true crime, or if you like all things horror related, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. That way you can join me for some morbid conversation. Now, full disclosure here. I am sick. My husband is sick. My girls are sick. We are all sick here in the Nelson home. And it's nothing serious. It's just we live in the Ohio Valley, and every single year, seasonal allergies just try to kill me. So that's what I'm dealing with. If you hear it in my voice, if you hear it in my throat, my nasal, I'm super congested and I have a sore throat. It might come across in the video, but I'm fine. I'm just allergies. But with that being said, I decided that today we would do a little bit easier style video than what I usually do, and that is doing a video of the 5 pictures with the interesting backstories. So it's easier for me to film, record, and edit, but I find them to be almost as interesting as a full-length true crime story. And since I'm sick, we're going to take the easy way out. So let's get into it. So we are going to start this one out hot. This man is very well known in his home country of Japan. He has written books. He has been in adult films. He's been featured in magazines, often using pictures just like this one, where he is dining on a meal. The disturbing thing about shots like this is why he is so well known in Japan, and why these pictures often have him acting as though he's enjoying a meal. The man pictured is Issei Sagawa, and his fame was earned when he killed a college classmate, had sex with her afterwards, and then consumed parts of her body before attempting to dispose of the rest. Sagawa was going to school in France at the time and had taken a liking to his classmate, Renee Hartfelt. The two are comfortable enough with each other that when Sagawa asked Renee to come over to his home to help with the translation of some poetry, she agreed without question. While in his apartment, Renee was reading from a book when Sagawa shot her in the back. Afterwards, he would violate her and then consume parts of her, as well as refrigerate some parts of her, while taking pictures the entire time of the process. Eventually, he would pack up what was left of her into some suitcases, which he would attempt to abandon at a park. When he was arrested, his parents, who were insanely wealthy, hired a very good defense attorney. After 2 years of being held before a trial, Sagawa was deemed unfit to stand trial and was ordered to a mental health care facility. However, he wasn't there for long before the French decided to deport him back to Japan because of his sinister reputation. The most unbelievable part of this case is when he made it back to Japan, he was immediately sent to a mental hospital there, where he was actually found to be sane. Due to a paperwork issue that involved charges in France being dropped and his documents being sealed and unreleased to the Japanese authorities, Sagawa could not legally be held in Japan. Issei had killed Renee on June 11, 1981, and on August 12, 1986, he checked himself out of the mental health care facility and has been a free man ever since. At first, he was treated as a local celebrity, but in later years, he has recently been shunned for his crimes, which he should be. We all have friendships that tend to just go in different directions. It's not often that friends that we meet in high school will last all the way until adulthood. That truth rings true for this group of girls pictured here. Unfortunately for one of the girls, Skyler niece, when her friends Sheila Eddy and Rachel Schoaf decided they no longer liked her, they went to a much further extreme than just going their separate ways. For months, the two girls maintained the facade of a friendship with Skyler, all the while planning and preparing to murder her. It finally came to a head on July 6, 2012, when the two girls invited Skyler to sneak out in the middle of the night to hang out and socialize. Instead of hanging out and socializing, the girls asked Skyler to grab a lighter from their car, and when her back was turned to them, They attacked her and stabbed her multiple times to death. The girls would be unable to bury their former friend, but did cover the body in brush and debris. Skyler would be reported missing by her parents and wouldn't be found until after Rachel Schoaf confessed to the murder and led them to Skyler's body on January 16. Because of her confession and cooperation, Rachel was given the opportunity to plead guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 30 years in prison, eligible for parole after 10 years. Sheila would be tried as an adult, and she would be found guilty on first-degree murder and would be sentenced to life in prison with the eligibility of parole after 15 years. One of the most wild parts about this case is that there were classmates that overheard the two girls planning and talking about the murder, but they brushed it off as just a joke. So one of the positive things to come from this case is the creation of Skyler's Law. At the time that Skyler was originally reported missing by her parents, she did not meet the criteria to issue an Amber Alert, mainly because she was a teenager and she wasn't suspected of being kidnapped. Skyler's Law changed the requirements issued for an Amber Alert and said that now any children that are reported missing, regardless of the circumstances, would have public notification. On August 5th, 2008, Thomas Langton was outside taking pictures with his new digital camera, and one of the pictures he snapped was of 10-year-old Ingla Hogland on her way home from football practice. She would never make it home from practice that day, and her mother, Karina, would set out to look for her daughter. After checking at school and the homes of Ingla's friends, Karina would end up making the drive back home. She would see some friends who lived nearby, and they had commented on how they had seen Ingla on her way home and had expected her to be home by now. Karina would end up continuing to look for her daughter before finding her bicycle abandoned off the road in a wooded area. She would end up bringing her husband to the area to look for their daughter, and they were both suspicious as they didn't think that their daughter would be able to manage to drag her bike so far off the road by herself. And their suspicions were heightened when they saw tire tracks that looked like they peeled out from the area. When they contacted police and an official search began for Ingla, Thomas would end up going to the police and telling them about taking the pictures that day and how he had captured a picture of Ingla. Within the series of photos that he took at the same time was a photo of a red car. Police would end up running the plates of the red car, and that would lead them to Anders Eklund. When they had him in custody, his appearance actually led police to consider a previously unsolved murder in which he fit the description of. Upon collecting his DNA, they would have confirmation that he was the one they were suspicious of. Pernilla Helgren had been beaten and strangled by an unknown assailant, and the case remained unsolved until now. Despite the fact that her attack had a witness who was able to provide an accurate description, and the fact that they had DNA, they were still unable to find the person responsible. Upon being informed of the connection that the police had tying him to the previously unsolved murder, Eklund would confess to both girls' murders. He would lead police to the unrecognizable body of Ingla in the woods. She was raped, beaten, and strangled to death before being doused in gasoline and burned to the point of being only identifiable by dental records. He was found guilty on 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of rape, and child pornography. On October 6, 2008, he would end up being sentenced to life in prison for the murders. However, given the fact that this case took place in Sweden, life in prison in Sweden is only 20 to 25 years, so pending him dying early in prison, it is likely that he will end up being released. This next picture is a picture of Alan Ruby with some of his friends that he had shared on social media of the group of kids hanging out at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. They had rented this hotel room the night of a football game between the University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma. However, Alan never actually attended that game. He just spent the evening socializing with his friends. What makes this photo so unnerving is that when you realize by the time this photo was taken, Alan had already killed his entire family. His mother, father, and sister lay undiscovered in their home while Alan enjoyed his evening. Alan Ruby was only 19 years old at the time, but he already had a habit of overspending and getting into money trouble. He had already been investigated by police due to forging $17,500 worth of checks. After his arrest, more stolen checks were found in his dorm room. Not only that, but Alan had also been found guilty of stealing credit cards and putting unauthorized charges on those cards. As part of his punishment, he was ordered to pay restitution, which only added to Alan's growing problems with money. At the time of his family's murders, he also owed a loan shark $3,000. By this point, his family had also financially cut him off due to his erratic and senseless spending. All of this led to Alan planning the deaths of his entire family in hopes of being the sole heir to their inheritance, which he would use to get him out of his financial hardships, as well as give him more money to spend. What I think is one of the crazier facts about this case is that at the time of his family's murders, Alan had already been found guilty of credit card fraud on top of stolen credit cards. Not only had he been using credit cards that he had stolen from family members, but he actually opened a new credit card under his grandmother's name in order to use the new line of credit. He had already pled guilty and had been sentenced to 3 years in prison for the charge. So he killed his entire family knowing he was already going to be going to prison and would be unable to spend any of the money that he inherited for at least 3 years. It makes it seem all the more pointless. This is a picture that Cheyenne Antoinette and Brittany Gargle had taken of themselves before they would go out for the evening. The two friends had planned to go to a house party together and then maybe follow it up with some trips to the bars to socialize. However, only Cheyenne would end up making it back home that night. According to Cheyenne, the two girls would go out to the bar together, but Brittany would end up meeting another man while they were out. After some flirtation, she would end up leaving Cheyenne and heading out with the unnamed man. After Brittany had left, Cheyenne would go visit some of her family at an assisted care facility before heading back home. When she would get home that night, she would end up writing on Brittany's social media, "Where are you? I haven't heard from you. I hope you made it home safe." Instead of being home safe, however, Brittany was found strangled to death on the side of the road. Cheyenne would be the first person police would talk to about Brittany's last moments, as the two girls had gone out together the night before. Cheyenne would tell the police about the man that Brittany had left with at the bar, and police would go to the bar to try to capture that man's face on video surveillance. That man's face was never identified, though, and this is because there was no man at the bar. In fact, according to video surveillance, the girls were never at the bar either. Police, growing suspicious, would then check the surveillance at the assisted care facility that Cheyenne said she had gone to visit her uncle at, but there was no evidence of her being there either. With Cheyenne looking more and more like she was involved somehow, police would reevaluate the scene and the evidence left behind at the dump site, and they would find one piece of damning evidence that undeniably connected Cheyenne to Brittany's death, and that was the tool that was left at the dump site that was believed to be the tool that was used to strangle Brittany with. A woven belt matched the markings on Brittany's neck perfectly. The belt also matched something else perfectly. The belt that Cheyenne was wearing in the photo that was posted of the two girls before going out that night. Allegedly, after some drinking and smoking marijuana, the two girls did end up getting into a fight that night, but Cheyenne claims that she does not remember killing Brittany, but she also doesn't deny it. In fact, she ended up pleading guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter and ended up getting sentenced to 7 years for it. All right, guys, that is a wrap. Like I said, I'm not feeling so hot today, so that's why we just did a real quick and easy one. Hopefully, the next time that I film, I feel a little bit better. The frog is out of my throat, the sinus is cleared from my head, and I don't sound so nasally. Um, but I don't feel horrible. I feel kind of rotten, but I don't feel horrible. It's just really affecting the way I'm talking and the way I'm sounding. So I do apologize for that. But if you've sat through this all, I appreciate it. And I hope to see you here next time. If you want to be notified of the next time, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on all your post notification bells for this channel, and then you will be notified next time I sit down here for another morbid conversation. Until then, friends, thank you so much. Stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to you later, all right?